Ahead on NewsWatch, the Senate Intelligence Committee holds the first public hearing into Russia's meddling in last year's election. We'll show you what's ahead in the investigation. Plus, a CBN News exclusive, our team talks with White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer. It's a conversation you won't find anywhere else. Plus,
England is not going to be England anymore. That's the future that is already happening.
see why some are saying the end of Britain as we know it is at hand. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. The leading Republican and Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee have pledged to get to the bottom of Russia's interference in last year's election. Senator Mark Warner of Virginia says some of the tactics used by Russia to meddle in the election would shake up anyone who believes in American democracy. He and Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina spoke to reporters ahead of today's congressional hearing. The hearing will address ways the Kremlin used technology to spread false information. They told reporters the committee would be open throughout the investigation and steer clear of politics. The president is placing the spotlight on drug addiction and the opioid epidemic. He's tapped New Jersey Governor Chris Christie to lead a commission that will look at the biggest drug overdose crisis in U.S. history. Heather Sells has the details.
The nation's opioid addiction is killing tens of thousands of people every year. The CDC estimates that 33,000 died because of an opioid overdose in 2015. It says 91 people in the U.S. die every day from such drugs. It's why the president is stepping up efforts to combat the crisis.
This is a total epidemic, and I think it's probably almost untalked about compared to the severity that we're witnessing.
On Wednesday, the president and commission head Chris Christie met with addiction advocates to hear their personal stories and policy proposals.
We talk about cancer, we talk about heart disease, we talk about diabetes, and we're not afraid to talk about it. But people are afraid and ashamed to talk about drug addiction. And while they don't talk about it, we lose lives.
Opioids are powerful, habit-forming narcotics. They go by names like Percocet and Oxycontin. Often, the addiction starts with prescription painkillers, and then people transition to heroin, which is cheaper. People like 21-year-old Caitlin Weems.
And then unfortunately, later on in her story, someone said, why not try heroin? It's the same thing. And within 4 months, she died of a heroin overdose.
The president said the new group would work with local officials, law enforcement professionals, and addicts to improve treatment options, prevent people from getting hooked in the first place, and stop the flow of drugs across the border. But critics fear the president will not do enough. That's because the GOP health care bill that recently stalled would have ended Medicaid expansion, which provides substance abuse treatment. The president has yet to name his drug czar, someone to head the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy and oversee strategy and spending for the country. Heather Sells, CBN News.
A federal judge in Hawaii has indefinitely extended an order to block President Trump's revised travel ban just hours before it was set to take effect. Hawaii became the first state to file a lawsuit to stop the president's revised executive order on immigration earlier this month. The order bans new visas for people from 6 Muslim-majority countries. It also temporarily shuts down the U.S. refugee program. Hawaii claims the order is unconstitutional, but a Department of Justice attorney says Hawaii has not proved how it is harmed by the revised travel ban. He speaks for the White House, and last night, Press Secretary Sean Spicer went on the record with Brody and Browder, CBN's Facebook Live political show. Jenna Browder has this story.
Healthcare could be back on the table. House Republicans are considering another vote, possibly as soon as next week, after the American Health Care Act failed on the House floor last week. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer explained on Brody and Browder, CBN's Facebook Live political show.
After sort of talks broke down last Friday, I think a lot of folks started to call the president and the senior team here with ideas and suggestions how to get things back on track. There's a lot of willingness to get this thing done.
Spicer adding many GOP lawmakers were elected on the promise of repealing and replacing Obamacare.
And I think, David, after they went home for the weekend, spent a little time with their constituents, they've come back eager to come back to the table and to try to get a deal on this.
Another issue we asked him about was religious liberty and when the president might make good on some campaign promises. Many evangelicals want to see him sign a religious liberty executive order that would allow them to practice their faith, including in the workplace, without fear of retribution. They also remember the promise he made on the campaign trail to repeal the Johnson Amendment, which keeps churches from speaking out politically.
And it's something that I think you're going to continue to see action on here in the White House. We've been very busy with a lot of other things, but rest assured that the president's commitment to religious liberty, and particularly the Johnson Amendment, is alive and well.
So what's it like being the White House press secretary? We ask him about all of the attention he gets being in the spotlight. You are one of the most recognizable faces now in the country. We're wondering, when you go out in public, do you fly under the radar, or do people have some choice words for you?
I would say this, probably 99% of the people who approach me have very positive things. I think one of the nicest and most kindest things that you can ever hear is when someone tells you they're praying for you. That really is the most that somebody could ever give another individual, is to tell them that they are thinking of them, that they are praying to God, that you succeed, that this country succeeds, that this president succeeds. And I get a lot of that, and that's probably the most reassuring part of the job. But once in a while, there's clearly a couple bad apples that I try to pray for, because I recognize that not everyone everyone has a right to express themselves under our Constitution, and we welcome that and we cherish that. But at times, it may not be the most appropriate venue to do that.
Sean, how's it going for you? I know you're a dedicated Catholic. Has this job tested your faith a little bit? I mean, it's been a roller coaster, or it can be, that job, no matter what's going on.
Well, number one, we're still in the season of Lent, and this is a great time, between almsgiving, prayer, and fasting. It's a reminder during these 40 days of a recommitment to a higher calling. But again, I think one of the things that it does is it strengthens your faith. It's one place that you, despite all of the negative tweets and the comments that Jenna was talking about or alluding to, that I think there's the one place that you can look to gain strength and confidence and wisdom and guidance.
And there's no doubt he's going to have to continue to lean on his faith as the spokesman for a White House with an aggressive agenda that includes tax reform, rebuilding America's infrastructure, and depending on what could happen next week, possibly health care. Reporting in Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
13 people are dead following a bus crash. That bus was carrying a church choir. It collided head-on with a pickup truck. There were 14 people on board who attended First Baptist Church in New Braunfels, Texas. Only 2 people survived. The truck driver and one other passenger from the bus. Both are currently in the hospital. The pastor of the church is asking for prayer.
I'm very grateful for the outpouring. I've received messages from pastors in different parts of the state. We need a lot of prayer.
That choir was returning from a retreat. North Carolina lawmakers are all set to vote on the state's controversial bathroom bill. Democratic Governor Roy Cooper says Democrats have agreed on legislation with Republicans. GOP leaders announced Wednesday the new legislation would be debated and voted on, but did not confirm whether there were enough votes for it to pass. Cooper says it is not a perfect deal, but would repair the state's reputation. Coming up, it's a place with more than 100 Sharia law courts, and non-Muslims are being targeted for violence. Here's the shocker. It is not in the Middle East. Find out where it is when we return. Last week's terror attack by a British-born Muslim proves again a radical community exists within Britain. Its goal is to create an Islamic nation. But CBN News has found a less visible force could likely achieve that objective long before guns, bombs, and violence ever do. Dale Hurd brings us the story now from London.
This is not Karachi, it's London. Britain's policy of mass immigration has brought what one expert is calling demographic upheaval to the United Kingdom. It's now a demographic certainty. Someday, the white native English will be a minority in their own country. It's just a matter of when. Also the native Welsh and the Scots. David Coleman is Supernumerary Fellow in Human Sciences and University Professor in Demography at Oxford. He's written that uncontrolled immigration could lead to a Finis Britanniae,
which simply means the end of Britain. And by that I mean the end of Britain as we know it. The change in the number of people, and particularly the change in the origins of the people, in their religion, in their cultural background, and everything would make Britain unrecognizable compared with the present time.
Immigration can strengthen a nation, but several Western nations, including the U.S., are debating the wisdom of large-scale immigration from the Islamic world. And experts are asking what will happen as Muslim numbers continue to grow in officially Christian Britain. In the dystopian masterpiece Children of Men, Britain in 2027 is racked by ethnic division and civil war. Muslim armed gangs fight a government that is hunting down and deporting immigrants and trying to maintain order. Britain's future is not likely to be this violent, but it may not be peaceful either. When the Christian activist group Britain First took large crosses through the English town of Luton last year, angry Muslims confronted them.
It's your country, is it? Yeah?
Your country? What, it's a Christian country. It's a Christian country. Yes, it is. This is a Christian country.
You're jealous that we're taking over?
You're Muslims will take over what?
Urban areas are becoming increasingly Islamic, whereas rural areas are becoming increasingly English, and there's a retreat away from these two populations from each other. That's the future that is already happening, that the media isn't interested in. Policy analyst George Igler says he does not believe it will take 40 or 50 years before the native British are a minority. This is a nonsense. It's going to be much sooner. And more importantly, when you look at places like Luton, we already have an understanding. We already have a window into what this future will be like. It's going to be violence and sexual violence against non-Muslims. It's going to be Sharia law. Muslims are still said to be only 5% of the population, and some experts insist they will never be the majority in Britain. Immigration also includes Christians from Africa. Professor Coleman, who stressed he is not anti-Muslim, but is simply looking at statistics, nevertheless said the changes could be drastic.
This is already manifest because there are strong currents in Muslim society which wish to see Muslim approaches to diet, to marriage, and would like to see Sharia law incorporated formally into British law, or in respect of some extremist groups who would like to see Sharia law replace British law.
More than 500,000 non-British citizens immigrated to the United Kingdom in 2016. Open borders was a big reason the British voted for Brexit, to leave the European Union. But Coleman says Brexit will not stop immigration from non-European nations.
Jihad is on its way! Jihad is on its way!
Great Britain was already a factory for terrorists before last week's attack on Westminster Bridge by a British-born Muslim. At least 850 British citizens have left the UK to join ISIS.
We have around 100 Sharia courts in this country. We're the only Western country with a functioning Sharia network of Sharia tribunals and councils. They're dealing with marriages, with divorce, even with criminal matters. They're marrying, as I said, they're marrying children.
If current trends continue, British schools will change when most of the pupils are from non-British backgrounds, as will British foreign policy and military alliances.
England is not going to be England anymore.
The English Defence League, in its street protest against the Islamization of Britain, used to sing, "We want our country back." If current demographic trends continue, it may be too late for that. Dale Hurd, CBN News, London.
Up next, we'll take you to one of the fastest growing churches in America. See how young Chinese immigrants are spreading the gospel. One of the fastest growing churches in America is the Mandarin-speaking Chinese church. From large urban areas to small rural communities, young Chinese immigrants are coming to Christ and their lives are being transformed for the better. Meng Fai Li has the story.
This reenactment shows the frustration and anger that is common in many families. Chinese American parents often find communicating with their children challenging. Yang Jie moved to the United States when she was 13. That's when the relationship with her parents became more troublesome.
The family rules are very strict. It's like everything I do successfully, I'm supposed to be that way. If I'm getting a 98, I will probably get punished.
Yang Jie had to learn to obey the rules in a hard way and couldn't quite understand why her parents treated her that way.
My father is a military member when he was younger. So the way how he was training me is like the military style.
Despite the conflict, Yang Jie never doubted her parents' love, and they encouraged her to find her passion. Gradually, she took up dancing and spent much time practicing in the studio and performing.
The biggest motivation for me to work really hard to get into the advanced class and to wear the most beautiful costume in the whole dance school. And later on, when I start to go on stage and to perform the numbers, the flowers, the big applauses, and what audience say about us became really attractive to us.
Life was good and she fell in love with Paul. Yang Jie placed the same expectation of perfection on Paul as her parents placed on her. Soon, everything changed and their relationship broke apart.
Both of us weren't talking to each other. We were mad at each other and I was waiting for her to apologize to me first. It was painful.
Their marriage and family life were about to collapse. Their daughter, Crystal, was traumatized by the constant fighting and arguments.
I get really kind of mad and kind of sad at the same time because the mad part is I don't think my dad should treat my mom like that.
In the midst of the trouble and the uncertainty, Yang Jie and Paul began to attend local Chinese church services. The pastor showed them and the other young couples how to build a strong and stable family in God's way.
There's always new people coming in. There's always people who are looking for a community to belong in and looking for people that they can connect with. And I think as a church, we have an opportunity to reach out to them with the gospel and to introduce them to Christ, many of them who've never been part of a church before or even picked up a Bible before, and just help connect with them and help them to know Jesus.
In 2016, the United States granted almost 41,000 immigrant visas to mainland-born Chinese citizens. And a number of Chinese churches in the United States grew from 1,200 in 2006 to 1,600 by 2011. Some churches are coming together to more effectively reach young Chinese.
We're working with people in our church and other churches. There's 4 Chinese churches in Hampton Roads area who are all working to reach this community, some in different ways. And we also partner with other local American churches as well. And we're part of a local church network that supports us and connects us with other church leaders and ministries. And we all basically partner together to reach the Chinese community and to really bring the gospel to that group.
Gradually, Yang Jie and her husband found their purpose as a couple, and their marriage was healed.
Praying is like the daily spiritual just breathing, the air that we need every day. And reading the Bible, studying the Bible, is like the food we intake every day.
Crystal was happy that Jesus restored her parents' marriage and brought peace to the family and special meaning to her.
Lord and glory and and thankfulness.
Today, Jesus changed all of us. We need to follow the Lord faithfully and continue to serve Him. We were lost. Now, we belong to the same Father.
Mengfei Li, CBN News.
Prayer is the air, and the Word of God is indeed your food. Stay with us. We'll be right back. It is time now for your Thursday Thankful, and today I'm thankful for God's timing. That said, I thought I'd share a prayer I have shared before. Lord, help me to love and treasure your timing more than my own. The bottom line is, you know best the timing and season for everything. It is my job to follow your lead. With that word, make this a thankful Thursday. That will have to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. We'd love to hear what you think about the stories you've seen here. You can do that by emailing newswatch@cbn.com or reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Have a great day, everybody.